There's also, I remember about 10 years ago, I was driving to Las Vegas from LA. I was living in LA at that time now. And I was driving in the car with two other girls, and we're driving down the highway. This is also Interstate 15 again. And it's like all of a sudden, and it's at night, and there's this big light just comes sweeping down right in front of the car. And I remember in my mind, I was going, "Oh my God, it's a UFO, it's a UFO!" And then I said out loud, "This is it, you guys," with the knowingness like, God, this is it. This is like a UFO. This is my time or something. But then all of a sudden, we're driving, and I'm looking for the light. And it's like, there's no light. Where'd the light go? It was like we're just driving. And I remember that the girls, we talked about, like, wow, that was really weird. Like, where'd that light go? And, God, was that a UFO or what was that? But it was like it came and vanished. And there was something about that particular trip that might possibly have been a time lapse, because I think that I thought it was a little strange that we got into Vegas a little later than we did, but I don't quite remember, but there's a funny feeling. And every time I drive on that highway at night, well, now I live in North Carolina, but this is when I would travel back and forth from Vegas to LA. Every time I drive that, this is a continuation of the story. I had to flip the tape over. When I get to that point, when I'm driving on the highway, I'm trying to find that spot. I'm trying to look for something that would explain that light, because it's always been kind of unsettling to me. And I remember it. I remember that night being odd. I don't know what happened. It could have been that it was just, like I said, a lamppost. I really honestly don't know. I'm trying to be as honest as I can. I'm not trying to color any details. I'm not trying to make things more than what they are. I'm just trying to give my story in a real brief manner. It's just, I've been going through this for years and years and years, and I want out in a way. I either want to know what's going on and know that I'm going to be okay, or I want to know if I'm crazy, so if I am crazy, that I can get help. And in fact, I started going to a psychologist because my head's been getting really messed up from this. And in fact, I went to 3 different psychologists before I found one that I was able to work with that would even, because I told them, I said, hey, I want to deal with extraterrestrials in my clairvoyancy, because I think that this is upsetting my life. And I want to work on it, and that's how I actually got in touch with you, Pat, because I'm on a search. I'm not happy. I mean, my life is wonderful. I got a wonderful life. It's very filled with a lot of creative avenues in school and music and hiking, and I live in the mountains, and it's great. But I'm depressed. Basically my psychological profile from this one psychologist I worked with was I'm very, very depressed. I'm very, very anxious. I'm highly suspicious, oversensitive. She says I don't tell lies, and I'm very honest, and basically I was intelligent. But the things that stood out was being depressed, anxious, stressed, or she said I was very stressed, and overly sensitive and suspicious. And like I pointed out, I said, I know those things about me. I know something's going on with me, because that's why I'm here. I mean, if I felt good, I wouldn't have gone. If I felt okay about what's going on in my life, I don't think I'd be looking for some answers. But I get scared, I get skeptical. I go, oh man, I'm going off the deep end, and I try to forget about it. But then something will happen, and I go, shit, man, something's happening again. Well, anyway, what's been happening this year, I started off with that noise. I was telling you earlier about that noise. After I went to Chesapeake Bay, and then I was back in Black Mountain, I was laying in bed, and right before I fell asleep, that zzzz came in and knocked me, and I go, wow, that's just like what happened in Virginia. And I heard it. I didn't see it. I heard it, not audibly, but within me. About a week later, it happened again. And about a week later after that, there was a form that had taken to it, where if I didn't see it with my eyes and I didn't hear it with my ears, but within myself, I saw I saw a gray rod that was probably about an inch or an inch and a half in diameter, about 8 or 9 inches long, go right through my Adam's apple area, or my throat area, at basically an angle. I was laying flat on the bed, right? I was trying to go to sleep. And all of a sudden this comes in, and in my mind's eye, I saw this gray rod. It wasn't shiny, it was like a flat gray, go right through my throat at an angle, like towards my face, that type of angle. Like it was coming down from up above me, but going at like an angle where it would like spear me or something. But it went with such a force that it jolted me up. It actually moved my body up on the bed. And I saw it, but it wasn't a solid object that went through my throat. I had no marks or anything that I know of. It was like interdimensional. It was like when you're a kid and you see movies with ghosts and you can put your hands through the ghosts. It was like that went right through me, but it jolted me, it knocked me, it had force to it. It moved me up on the bed, and it scared me. It scared me, and I go, oh man, they're messing with me. I mean, I just take it for granted at this point that it's, it's the same old, right? There's somebody out there that's messing with me. Anyway, I've had that noise off and on now all year, but about 6 months ago, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning or something. I don't know what time it was, but it was like in the middle of the night. And I woke up. Well, I remember that night feeling a little agitated and apprehensive about going to sleep. Like, oh man, something's going to happen. It's like I almost was like leery of going to sleep that night. It's like I knew something might happen. So I don't know if I created this or set myself up for it. But it involved my boy. So now either there's a psychic connection there with my son and I, or coincidences or whatever, but I was awake when this happened, and I know something's going on now. It's either entities or poltergeists or spooks or ETs. It's something, because something definitely happened. Or unless I'd made it up in my mind and my boy was dreaming and on a psychic level picked up that I was scared and whatever. But what happened was I woke up and that I was just permeating my whole being. It was like I was just like within it. I was surrounded in it. I woke up and I go, oh my God, I'm paralyzed. I felt like I was under a form of anesthesia. I was trying to fight it to regain my senses. I said, Colette, you're awake. This is really happening. My eyes were open, but I couldn't see anybody in that room. But the first thought that came in my mind was, oh my God, something just happened. They were here. And it took about 30 seconds for me to begin to become mobile and to knock that anesthesia feeling, that distortion off in my mind. I was hazy. I sat up in bed and I was just frightened. And the moment that I sat up in my bed, my little boy, Colton, who's 4 years old, walked in the room and said, Mommy, I'm scared. I want to sleep with you. And he wouldn't go back in his room. And I don't remember what happened the rest of the night, except that we just, he crawled in my bed, and I was just afraid. My heart was pounding. And I was so freaked out that had happened, because I was awake that was something very real to me. That wasn't like a dream. That was not a dream. That was real. And it involved my boy. It wasn't like I had a nightmare and it was a nightmare and I dreamed Colton came in. No, something happened both to me and him. Or, like I said, there's a psychic connection or something. I don't know. But I couldn't even stay in the house the next night. I had to go over to my friend's house. And anyway, I have that noise that still comes in. And I don't know what to think of it, except it scares me. Oh, I had a dream back in November. Last November, I was in LA visiting. And I was in bed, and I had a dream that there were ETs or somebody doing some kind of work on my left breast, like through my nipple or something. That they were like doing something. I don't know, you know. But I woke up in that morning and go, oh, man, they followed me here. They know I'm here, you know. And anyway, later that day, I looked at my left breast and I checked it because, see, I have a little bit of milk in my breast. Doctors don't know why. They don't know if it's from my pituitary or my thyroid, but I have a little bit of milk, but it's usually white or clear. But anyway, that day, I remembered the dream. I go, oh man, I looked at my left breast, and I squeezed my nipple, and this brown stuff, like this really weird-looking stuff, just started oozing out of my nipple. And so I go, oh my God, I got cancer or something. So and then I checked my right breast, but my right breast, just white came out. I go, wow, man, that is really weird. I go, now either subconsciously, my mind picked up that my left breast, something was happening with the glands or something, and then I just put it in the form of a weird dream, or maybe something happened. I don't know. There's been one other time that I've had the brown. It seems at the time of ovulation, there's been 3 incidences that I have brown stuff coming out of my left breast, but it's only my left breast, and it only started after that dream. And that was in November. I think it's happened twice since then. So I don't know if it's just like my hormones doing that. But but that dream was odd. It was odd. Also, if something's going on with me, I wonder if something's not going on with Jeff, because last year he had called me up and said that something very frightening had happened to him. And this is a grown man. If you knew Jeff like I knew Jeff, and he called you up and told you this story, you'd think that the guy was frightened to death, because he doesn't even believe that I'm psychic. I mean, my girlfriend Pam and my other friends could tell him point blank, hey, she's psychic, believe her. He thinks I'm psycho. He thinks I'm crazy. He really has a hard time even understanding paranormal things or anything abstract. And anyway, what happened to him, I guess he had been driving through the desert from Lake Mojave back to L.A. and got in real late that night and went to sleep. And he said must have been about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and he was asleep, but he felt like he woke up, but that he couldn't open his eyes, and he felt like he was fighting something off that was trying to overcome him, and he just couldn't, get his will back. He was like fighting for his will to overcome whatever it was trying to take him over. And he said at one point, he says, I knew I was awake, but he says I couldn't open my eyes, and so I had conflict of, what was going on. I opened my eyes and I looked out the window. I wondered what those lights were doing out there. And he goes, and then I felt like, I was awake, but then I fell back into this turmoil, this struggle of fighting something off that was like trying to possess me. He called it like evil spirits trying to possess him and overtake him, and then he says, then I was awake. He says, I knew I was awake. He said, but there was nothing in the room. He said, I just thought I had a really bad nightmare. He says, but I was so frightened. He says, I got my pillows and I ran into Jamie and Jennifer's room, and I had to sleep with the girls that night. And so he told me that story. I go, Jeff, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think that there's extraterrestrials out there or something. It sounds like maybe that's what happened to you. He goes, Colette, I don't even want to hear about it. He says, I just think that you're nuts. And so I don't really talk to him about it. And I've talked to some of my friends about my experiences, and since it hasn't happened to them, they think it's wonderful, but I don't. I do feel different. To be honest, I feel different. I feel a little special. I feel, well, if this is going on, it's kind of exciting. It's like new and stuff. But it scares me to death when these things happen to me, or it scares me to think that there's something out of my control going on that even affects my child, or that, that my daily life is preoccupied with wondering if I'm going to get zapped or something. It's not pleasant for me. I want to know what's going on. I basically want to know if I'm crazy, and I've created all this all my life, and I just think these things happen, or if something really does happen. I also think I told you this, Pat, that there's been other people say that that when I was under the influence, like I'd, pot or whatever, I'd go, well, they're here now. and I'd walk away and I'd start talking in some, weird foreign language that they would scare them to death because they'd say it was a language, but it was unearthly. They had used that term, unearthly. And that was, two people had said that, and that was a year apart. These incidences had happened, so that's when I quit drinking and smoking pot. I mean, that just would freak me out to think that I had no recall of sitting up under trance talking in some weird language and nobody being able to figure out what language it is, but it was a different pattern of speech. And so that bothers me. I mean, I've had lots of weird things happen to me on a paranormal level that I can't explain, and I mean, I could go on forever with stories. There's a concern that maybe I used to do drugs. That they say that, on a metaphysical level, that you do drugs and you open up yourself. You open up your channels and you receive more, and that these things happen if you do drugs. So I wondered if I didn't fry my brain or something. I don't know. I just know that I'm going to be 32 years old, and it's about time that, this is going on almost 20 years now of trying to figure this thing out, and I think I deserve it for myself to know how to, if this is going on, how to deal with it or whatever. I'm glad to have met you. I'm scared. I'm excited. I'm scared. I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm going up to New Jersey and doing this. I have a big concern about expenses and all that. I try to be responsible with my mom, with my kid, and so he's going to have to stay at somebody's house. And the whole thing is kind of overwhelming to me, but I'm willing to do it. I know I've got to do this for my own self-understanding, and I feel like once I know if I'm crazy or something's going on, either way, I'm going to know how to adjust my lifestyle, and I think that's real important. There's other things, as I'm talking here, all these things are flashing in my mind. There's something about a TV. I remember in one of the books they were talking about a TV glow or something, and that triggered a recall of thinking one time I was on a couch in my living room going, wow, why is that TV on? TV's on, but it's not on, but wow, the TV's still on and the TV's turned off. And I just had that memory, and it's very hazy, and it's in the background somewhere. But, see, I've been, for years, looking up at the stars, wondering which one it was up there that knew I was down here. And that could be hopeful, wishing to hope that I was different from everybody else. Maybe I'm emotionally messed up in a lot of areas, and I want to feel different from the rest of humanity. I don't know. I know that I'm different. People comment about me all the time, say that Colette, you're so different, you're so weird, They think I'm a very positive person. They think I'm very aware, and my energy, they're always amazed at how vital I am. Just that I've got good energy about it. My chi, some of the doctors I hang around with that are into Oriental medicine, they call it chi, that I have excessive chi. And I know I have special abilities with my hands and with my mind. It'll just be real interesting. I don't know what to say at this point. Oh yeah, another parallel was the bit that I had, the nodule on my pituitary, and at the time when the doctors think it's a tumor and stuff, they were talking about operations through the nose, and I didn't want that. If it's not going to grow, I didn't want to be operated on. But when I was reading the book and they talked about these ETs sticking things up the nose and planting little 2-millimeter things, and I go, oh, man, I got a 3-millimeter little thing that showed up on the CAT scan, and there's new techniques out now where the doctors can go up through the nose, and so that kind of was a parallel too. But I really don't think that's an implant. I mean, I think that that's a coincidence too. I looked at the CAT scan, and it looked to me like it wasn't metal or plastic or anything. I mean, the most I could think if it's anything is different form of tissue. But then I was talking to Alice, well, maybe that, how cells are all electrical because of our chemical reactions are basically electrical, and we have different cells that function for different modes, and are like we have our nerve transmitters and different things that send signals. Maybe if those implants are anything that don't show up on CAT scan, if they're not metal or plastic or whatever, maybe it's some form of tissue or cell structure that they implant in us, that the only specific means for those cells is to send signals, that their chemical reaction is that there's some kind of transmitter, but that biologically that they're adaptable within our own human system, so our body doesn't reject them. Maybe that there's some live form of tissue too. I don't know. I mean, I'm speculating. Just because that CAT scan didn't look to me like there was a metal thing in my brain. I don't know. I don't recall having anything put up my nose or any ear problems. I just always know or walk around and think that I'm being monitored. And I even feel that they're in my house, but I can't see them. Like I told you that one time when I was talking, I was really getting into it. Like, I'm so paranoid, Pat, that I think that they know that what I'm doing all the time. That, like if they want to get me, they're going to get me no matter what. But I did feel a big sense of relief when I went on this trip when I was staying at my ex-father-in-law's house, because I felt like, gosh, I was in the big city, lights all around me. I was with Earl, nothing would happen. And I felt safe, and I was getting a calm would come over me before I'd go to sleep at night. So I'm looking to get that calm back in my life, that feeling of everything's okay and an acceptance again, instead of walking around being paranoid or being so paranoid that I might start creating hallucinations in my mind. But when I talk to other people, just my average friends, and, hey, you ever dream about ETs? No. I mean, they've never even dreamed about it, flying saucer, and I've had my little boy wake up and tell me when he was 3 years old, Mom, I was on a spaceship last night, and they let me fly it. They let me sit in this little seat and describe the interior of a ship. And I don't know. I mean, I keep thinking maybe it's from taking him to a pizza place that had a little toy spaceship or something. But when we were in Vegas this last time, my brother was talking to me about any dreams. Do you ever dream your dad? He says, yeah. And what are your good dreams? And he says, well, these are my good dreams. I dream about Grandpa and Daddy. And Ron says, well, what are your bad dreams? He says, well, sometimes I have bad dreams. And Ron says, well, what are those? And he says, well, sometimes I dream about monsters taking me on airplanes. And that just blew me away. I didn't know what to think about that. I tried to talk to him last year when he had told me about being on the spaceship, and sometimes he would say that there was somebody who would visit him and talk to him. But he's not real, I don't know, he's so young that I can't really distinguish what's reality or what he's creating or fantasizing about, or what's dreams or what's real. So at this point, I just want to leave him out of it. That's why I'm not bringing him up. But I know that he was involved with me that night of whatever happened. So I'm going to end this tape at this point, rewind it and listen to it. If I can think of anything else to add, I will. And in any event, I am getting prepared to see you in New Jersey soon. So I hope in the meantime everything goes well for you. Bye-bye. I was just thinking, here's an old tape. This was, I was at a psychic back in 1984. And so there's different segments that have been I'm going to record here on this to show you that even back. I have made one. Can this be? Does this my question have to be for this?
No, it doesn't make it.
Okay. When I was talking to Robin, she mentioned something about the alien force of her that burning car key and stuff like that. I told her, I said, it's odd because I used to have a series of dreams that there was a spacecraft of alien people that were sending me messages or teaching me, giving me lessons. And I said, I really felt like I am in touch at times with an outside alien force that is monitoring me, but that I am in close contact.
It's very possible. You see, the basic form.
Here's the next cut from it.
To bring the information down here, you have to see who you are dealing with.
What's been odd is that in these dreams, it was like series of dreams where they were teaching me, And this was a couple years ago. And then in a couple of dreams it was said, okay, you're ready now to come, and we'll take you up in the craft.
Yeah.
And I was so horrified that it was symbolizing a house that I was creeping.
See, but the basic...
So, that man's name was he lives in Los Angeles also. I haven't seen him for years. I only saw him 3 times. I am going to get this tape off to you, I guess, and I guess I should put my name and address on this in the event that years from now you find this tape in your drawer and you don't know who made it. So my name is Colette Dowell. I live at Black Mountain, North Carolina. My phone number is and I guess I'll be seeing you soon, Pat. Thank you very much for everything.